WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively into football season. We're doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. We will be at Union Brewing with Adam Benish and some new friends and some Steady Eddie, some Ed Reed beer. I'll be drinking it all on Friday. That'll be from 2 until 5 as we roll out the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. It is Restaurant Week beginning this weekend, so we want to remind everybody to get out there and enjoy Restaurant Week. Also, our friends at Goodwill and our friends at Window Nation, where they're still doing deals at 866-90-NATION. Hope to have some of their folks on later on in the month. Luke Jones was dispatched to exit 16W to the Meadowlands. Had some good times up there, the old stadium, the new stadium. Some point over the weekend, I saw the Ed Reed return at the old Meadowlands that probably cost Brian Billick some years of his life there during that run back of 106 yards, whatever the hell it was. Luke Jones joins us now. He was at the new Meadowlands. They call it MetLife Stadium. They kind of screwed my wife on insurance back when she had cancer, but, you know, who am I to say? Luke, how are you? Wet like a duck, victorious like a champion, and fatigued like a reporter who did double duty on Sunday. How you doing, man?
Doing well, doing well. A good way to start the season for the Ravens. Not the most overwhelming 60 minutes of football, but they did enough. And certainly when they needed to start making some plays after a pretty sleepy first half offensively. Let's not mince words. It was not very impressive.
Well,
but
that was a league-wide issue, right? I mean, sleepy first halves were for everybody.
Yeah, you saw some really weird results, and I mean, look at the Sunday night game. Dallas so bad, and Dak Prescott hurt. And I think that's a reminder here. Joe Burrow throws 4 picks in Cincy, and the Steelers win. A reminder that week one can be very strange, and we see some weird results. We see it every year. Some teams that you wouldn't expect to win. Some teams that you're expecting to be very good lose, and sometimes they lose in pretty unimpressive fashion. But it's also a reminder that week one can have some of those weird outlier type stats. I think we all remember the Packers in week one last year. And Rodgers was terrible. The Packers were terrible, and they ended up having a very good season. So just a reminder on that front. But I think for the Ravens, given so much uncertainty, given the fact that there was no Ronnie Stanley out there on Sunday, there was no J.K. Dobbins, there was no Marcus Peters, who I thought of those three had the best chance to play. We didn't see those guys. We know about the guys that are on PUP, talking Tyus Bowser and Gus Edwards. So with that in mind, with the thought that this team, most of its starters did not play in the preseason whatsoever, I was curious to see how they were going to start. And they started fast defensively, and that continued throughout the day against Joe Flacco and the Jets offense. But the Ravens offense didn't run the ball. That's something we'll talk about. That's something I do have some concern about right now if we're talking about early season concerns.
I was going to say point Lamar one Jackson is running game. Where's the running game? I didn't see it, right?
Yeah. But if the running game's not going to be there, you're Pro Bowl, former MVP quarterback throwing 3 touchdowns and shaking off a slow start. That's what you want to see. It was good to see Devin Duvernay catch 2 touchdowns. It was great to see the 55-yard touchdown to Bateman. So, there was plenty to take away, to be encouraged by. But there were also some issues, like the running game, for example, like some health issues, losing Jawan James, and you're already down to Patrick McCary until Ronnie Stanley gets back out there. Kyle Fuller, we'll see what happens with his knee injury. But by and large, I think a week one that you can check it off, I think you can be satisfied with. Not sure anything that it drastically altered my impressions of this football team one way or the other, but you go on the road, get a win in week one. Against a fired up, team, 9/11 anniversary, all of that. I think ball and the Ravens, satisfied, content with what they did in week one, but understanding, there's plenty of work to do and plenty of ways they need to get better still.
Let's talk about the running game. Luke Jones is here. You can find him at Baltimore Luke at WNST.net. He is the only reporter we're allowed to have now out in Owings Mills, so he'll be working double duty. And as long as the Orioles continue to survive, and they are their own story, we'll get to them a little later on in the week as well. It's been a little weird here, man. You and I have not had an opening week where the Orioles are fat into a legitimate pennant race. I mean, even at 14, you knew they were making the playoffs, right? This is a whole different level of back and forth the other 6 days of the week. But for the Ravens and for the running game and for where they'd like it to be, what would have been ideal for them in having Ronnie Stanley out there. Where are you on the Ronnie Stanley thing? I mean, we're all guessing, right? Like the fact that they sent him out there to practice week one, they do. We've learned this in taking my press credentials this week. They do so many things out there that are smoke screeny. I mean, this is Harbaugh's mind game, and he thinks he's Bill Belichick, and we're going to fake injuries, and this guy might be ready to go, and this guy might be ready to play. I mean, how the Jets did it on Wednesday with Flacco, right? Like, that kid wasn't going to ever play, but they turned it into a big drama. All these teams like to play gamesmanship on who's going to be playing on the weekend. The Ravens don't even know, right? I mean, in their own case, they hadn't seen their offensive line fly, and then this kid gets hurt. I mean, it's not really dissimilar to what happened last year in the Raiders game, right? First half, first game, left tackle, think you got something, you don't have something. I mean, Patrick McCarry, if he's got to play left tackle all year, they're going to lose a lot.
Yeah, and that's nothing against Patrick McCarry, and I think he can hold up in a short term, on a short term basis.
Left tackle.
Right, sure. I mean, and you want Patrick McCarry to be able to move all around, right? I mean, you're going to have in-game injuries from time to time, like we saw on Sunday. You know, if that's the scenario and he has to fill in, fine. If it's a scenario where Ronnie Stanley's not going to be right, and we just don't know right now. He was never going to play week one. From the time that he didn't show up on the practice field until Labor Day, we knew he wasn't going to be ready, right? I mean, he started practicing, I think it was August 8th, August 9th last year. And he even said in an interview that he did after he had ankle surgery later in the regular season last year that he thought he might have rushed himself a little bit. I mean, keep in mind, this is a guy who's had at least, we know of, 3 procedures on that ankle, 3 surgeries on that ankle.
He's also made $100 million. He's collected a lot of money without playing, and he's not a bad guy. He's a good guy, you know, like he wants to play. So I would think last year, it's like you want to play, you want to play, you want to play. You're 27, 28 years old. The clock's ticking. You feel like it's what you do. You know, I've seen other players take the money and say, I'm good. I'll go out on my farm and do something else. I don't know that that's what Ronnie Stanley is, but I also don't. The realistic part as the time starts to go, that we're going to see this version of a 25-year-old Ronnie Stanley who looks like a top 5 left tackle, looks like a $150 million left tackle, that's going to appear again in week 6, and he's just going to be out there slobber knocking people. I'm very skeptical about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Look, I expect him to get back on the field and play. You know, whether that's going to be this week, whether it's going to be week 3 going to New England, whether it's week 4, you know, somewhere in that territory. He's going to need, I always thought, and I even said this last week, I thought the question based on the timing was he going to be ready week 2 or week 3, or is it going to be week 4? You know, that's kind of where it is, considering.
And that would be the same thing with Peters, right? Seeing him run around, like he might play this week, but he might not.
I think he's closer, just because he's practiced for a longer period of time. He returned to practice in mid-August. It was actually fascinating. And again, of those 3, and J.K. Dobbins being the other, he was the one that I felt the most confidence in. And that doesn't mean that I was 98% sure he was going to play, but felt like he was the furthest along. It was strange, Nestor. He went out for a pregame workout, jogged around the perimeter of the field, and then he literally ran the stairs all the way around the lower perimeter of the stadium up there. He ran stairs. And as he was about halfway through that, I'm like, this is a little more than just a light workout for a guy that's going to be playing a football game. So you could kind of tell he wasn't going to play at that point, but I think he's closer. Now, as I've said, as I've written at BaltimorePositive.com, as you and I have talked throughout the offseason, I think from a fan standpoint, I think media are guilty of this too. We tend to look at guys coming back from injury almost like it's a game of Madden. And I know you're not a video game guy, but humor me for a moment. You play a season, a guy gets injured in the season, and it says he's going to be out 4 weeks. He comes back, and he's good as new, right? Right as rain, and he's back to being the guy he was before. We know in real life that there is a range of outcomes between being injured and completely out or on IR and coming back and being the player you were before the injury. There is a wide range in between there. And a lot of times it's a case, like we always mention Jamal Lewis coming back in 2002. He wasn't the 2003 version of Jamal Lewis, right? He was good coming back from the ACL, but it was really the year after that. And I think a great example of that was take a look at what Saquon Barkley looked like for the Giants yesterday compared to how he looked last year. Big difference on Sunday against the Titans. So
honestly, I thought about Flacco running around when he was getting out of the pocket and literally running, and thinking about that leg brace he had back in 16 and 17, and thinking it's 7 years removed now. 7 years away from that injury that Joe Flacco had. He's still out there playing. You know, like it's not you can't rush it, But there is a thing where time could heal some of these injuries. And then
Sure.
some guys like, Jimmy Smith
Well,
came back and played for 8 years after Lee's Frank. He was never right. He was never looking like a Hall of Fame top caliber corner ever again. He was in his 30s or whatever. But I'm worried about Stanley that we're, especially given the body size, given the where it is, all of that, the toughness that position needs. The notion that in week 8 we're going to look up and say we have some semblance of a top 10 left tackle over there. Like I can't project that, and I don't think that the franchise is projecting that. I think they were projecting Juwan James into that position, right? Like at least for a little while. Now that's gone. This is messy. This is messy for a couple weeks for them, and then the other side of the messy is you really don't know what you're going to get. There is no counting on Ronnie Stanley. There really isn't.
I mean, I think that's the part. I don't think this was a case where they thought Juwan James is going to be the guy or going to be starting half the season. But I do think that they felt, okay, this can be a nice placeholder. And then we don't need to rush Stanley. If he's looking like a guy that's, let's face it. Let's remember, this guy has played one regular season game since November 1st, 2020. We're talking one regular season game in the last 22 months. I mean, that's significant. That's substantial, even if you have an excellent prognosis in terms of how he looks now. They've been encouraged. I've said it throughout. I said it throughout training camp. He's in good shape. You look at him. He doesn't look like he's overweight or anything like that. I mean, Ronnie Stanley's always been, one of those left tackles that, kind of like not as big as Jonathan Ogden, but in the same way that you never said he was fat, right? Jo was just big. He was just a massive
Eugene Monroe
human.
was one of those guys too that you
Sure.
looked at. You said he's not that big next to Zeus or next to John Ogden. I mean, there were some mountainous Ja Reed, these mountainous guys. He was more like an athlete, more like a guy that looked like a power forward playing football or basketball.
Right. Sure. So, I mean, in the case of Stanley, and this applies for J.K. Dobbins, this applies for Marcus Peters to lesser degrees for those guys, most likely. But it is a case of trying to get these guys right. Could they go out there and play? Could J.K. Dobbins and Marcus Peters have gone out there and played on Sunday? Yeah. Would they be the best version of themselves? I think that's obviously a no at this point in time. Now, come week 2, week 3, week 4, get them back out there, get them back out playing. You're hoping they look good. And it is a case where you hope as the season progresses, they're going to look better and better and better. And that's what you're hoping for with Ronnie Stanley right now, because I see this all the time and I understand the frustration. I see constantly on Facebook, on Twitter, I get questions about it. I get emails about it, where fans are just so frustrated over the Ronnie Stanley thing. And I get it. The Ravens paid him and he suffered a severe ankle injury 2 days later. Just rotten luck, but they really don't have any alternative right now. I mean, this is a case where you look at his deal, you're talking end of next year before you can even start talking about this from a cap standpoint in terms of even just releasing him, right? I mean, it would be that consequential to the cap where there would be so much accelerated dead money that it would cost you more to cut him loose right now.
That's why they had to give him $9 million last week, right? I mean,
that was more a product to me of they knew they weren't getting an extension done with Lamar and they weren't going to be able to touch that cap number. So they went to Stanley. They would have rather not done that because it did tack on a couple more $1 million for each subsequent year of that contract. But, I think they fully expect him to play. I think they feel okay, at least okay about where he is right now, but there's just that unknown until he really gets out there. I mean, it was the same thing last year. I think they were cautiously optimistic and they felt like he was going to be okay, and then goes out there against the Raiders and very clearly wasn't. So there is going to be that unknown. And to your point, there is that question as far as what version of Ronnie Stanley are you going to get? Are you going to get a guy that if he's out there, let's say sits out another week and he debuts in week 3, can he at least be average right then, but then get better? Can he be ascending in that way? Or is it going to be a case of he's a diminished version of himself? You mentioned Jimmy Smith. I would give you a much better example, in my opinion, would be Ladarius Webb. Ladarius Webb was a guy who very much in 2011, 2012 looked like he was on the cusp of becoming a Pro Bowl cornerback. He suffers that second ACL injury in a 4-year period. He came back and played 5 more years. Webby had a nice career, but he was never close to being that guy again. The problem was he was being paid to be that guy at that point. So that's where there's just that unknown. Juwan James, look, let's be clear about this. there was plenty of unknown and plenty of skepticism about him. This is a guy who had only played in 3 games since 2018. He had the Achilles injury last year. He suffers the unfortunate, same leg, but it sounds like it was at a different spot with the tendon. But there was plenty of unknown with him. So, it's not as though Juwan James was this elaborate plan B kind of scenario. He wasn't making that much money, and they knew that his injury history was quite extensive. So where they stand right now, you hope Patrick McCary can hold down the fort if it needs to be in another week or two. And then at that point, Ronnie Stanley presumably gets back on the field, and you kind of see where you are with him. He's been much more deliberate this time around. Keep in mind, he underwent that surgery in October of last year. This wasn't an off-season type thing. So he's taken a longer period of time to rehab. He's been more deliberate. The team has been deliberate with the ramp up for him. But until he's out there and the live bullets are flying for a left tackle, there is going to be that unknown. And I think skepticism at this point is warranted. Not to say that he'll never play football again, but what version of Ronnie Stanley are you going to get at this point? So that's unfortunate. And again, Juwan James had never played left tackle. I mean, this summer was the most extensive left tackle he had played since high school. He had played somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 snaps somewhere.
I guess the question is, couldn't they have gotten a real left tackle? Couldn't they have gotten a guy who plays like? I mean, Patrick McCary's not a left tackle. Juwan James is not a left tackle. Well, Ronnie Stanley's the only left tackle they got, and he's not even available. Like that. That is the part of this.
That's fair.
Look, they won by 3 touchdowns, so there's no that's. At the end of all of this, that deodorizes everything, right? Like the fact that for 9 months, are they going to win the opener? Who are they going to play? They're going to play the Jets. Oh my God, they're going to play the Jets. They're going to play Flacco. Who's going to be ready? Who's not going to be ready? Oh my God, Peters isn't ready. Oh my God, Stanley's not ready. That's $100 million of cap. And then they go out and win by 3 touchdowns. So like beating bad teams, good for them. I mean, I'm pretty convinced the Jets are a bad team, right? A bad team with a backup coordinator, but a left tackle. My God, they're playing with a third string left tackle. They don't have much going on. In general, I think the Dolphins will be better. I don't know what the Patriots are. They didn't look good in week 1. Then we see the Bills. So over these 4 weeks here, they come out of this thing 2-2. They're 2-2. If they come out of it 4-0, different thing. And if they come out of it 4-0 and Ronnie Stanley still isn't on the field yet, and it's my birthday in the middle of October, then you'd really know they're on to something. Because if they can win these games without $150 million left tackles, without elite cornerbacks, without their running back, without their quarterback having to run, which goes back to last year in the Minnesota game and running the ball 21 times and how you get into trouble. You get into trouble when you have to beat the Jets and Lamar has to run 17 times to do it, and you need Justin Tucker to kick a 69-yard field goal like they did in Detroit last year to beat a crappy team, right? They were beating crappy teams barely last year, having to come back from 2 and 3 touchdowns. I mean, last year was an aberration. They can't play from 3 touchdowns behind. They need to play more the way they played on Sunday, which I am heartened by just the general tenor of the Ravens franchise rolling out, getting on a train, going up to New York, and beating the Jets like garden variety, like they always should, like they always would, like they always beat a bad team. They beat a team by 3 touchdowns on the road, right, to start the year. I don't care who you played, and they're not even healthy. So check, thumbs up on the Ravens. They check the boxes for me. But hey, man, Cleveland won. Pittsburgh won, right? Cincinnati lost. Cincinnati's not going to lose every week. They're going to win a lot of games, right? So the season's off to this perfect start for them, as I see it. They won the game. They did Fuller aside and whatever with Juwan James, who they didn't want playing anyway in week 5, right? So I feel like it's a thumbs up week for them, not just because they won, because of the way they won.
Yeah, I think, and that was the point I wrote about at BaltimorePositive.com early last week from, the standpoint of all these coming back from all these injuries and knowing that their starters didn't play in the preseason. That was a deliberate decision made by John Harbaugh and the organization based on what had happened last year. There was always going to be at least a perception or at least a concern as much as just acknowledgement of reality that this wasn't going to be a team that was likely going to be firing on all cylinders coming out of the gate. And for you to go out and look, they didn't run the ball well. They didn't come close to running the ball well, save for what? Mike Davis pops the longest run of the day and he fumbled on it, right? Which isn't going to put him in John Harbaugh's good graces. But the fact that they did that, the fact that they won without Ronnie Stanley, without Dobbins, without Peters, here's the difference of saying that now as opposed to last year at this time. Those guys were done. right? They were all done for the season at this point. They weren't coming back. So there was already a sense of being in survival mode and are you going to survive the attrition? Now, knowing, yes, you're going to have injuries like they had on Sunday. You hope you don't lose two guys every week like that because then that'll start to count up or to really pile up. But there is a sense of you are going to be getting these guys back. Yes, we don't know exactly what they're going to look like, but they will be coming back. So that's where get as many wins as you can now as an honorary member of the AFC East over these first 4 weeks and see where you are at that point. You play Cincinnati after that. If you can be in a position where, as long as you're managing to win games and you're keeping your head above water, yeah, this team's going to presumably get better as the year goes on. And that's the big difference as far as where they are right now, health-wise, compared to last year at this point where they had already lost a number of guys and you knew they weren't coming back.
Luke Jones is here. He will be there at Baltimore Luke. You can find him out on the web. Obviously, the Orioles all week long as well. Luke will be at the Ravens camp. I have been ceremoniously thrown out of Ravens camp for life by Chad Steele. I've written and spoken at length about it. I'm not going to belabor it too much on the radio other than what it is. I may belabor it a little bit on the web or opine in regard to all of this. But Luke's going to be out in Owings Mills. We're going to be on Friday at Union Brewing. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery in conjunction with our friends at Goodwill Window Nation, and it is finally this weekend, Restaurant Week. Get out, take advantage of incredible deals all over the state for Maryland Restaurant Week. You can go to MarylandRestaurantWeek.com to learn about all the locations, but probably around the corner from you. Make sure you're out taking care of that. Luke and I are going to continue talking Ravens football, Lamar Jackson, O-line, John Harbaugh, we haven't mentioned Joe Flacco yet. We'll do all of that. I am Nestor. He's Luke. Stick around. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive.